Hey, good morning, you guys. Yesterday, I got some questions that pertain to growing your business, and I thought that I would take on one this morning. It's Friday, and I thought that I would take on this whole conversation that is around when do you know that you should like give up on the plan you're working. Like maybe you've been working it for a while and either it's not working or you're bored of it. And how do you know when you should switch things up and choose another path? So, of course, I can't speak I can speak generally, but that is a very personal question as far as what is your level of resilience? What is your vision? How important is your vision to you? And so when I got asked this question yesterday, which is how long can you rinse and repeat a strategy versus switching things up? I don't know the context in which that question came from. And so here's what I can tell you on this. I was just saying this to somebody, one of our clients actually the other day, that I look back, so I can only speak from my perspective, right? I look back at my own life, and have you ever been working something and it's like you're kind of like you can see where you want to go, but you can't really get there, and for some reason it's like time after you keep you have the risk factor and the courage factor to get up to the table or get up to the starting line and launch something, do an event. We actually have an event today, but do an event, do a webinar, do a list build, do lives, whatever, do a product launch. It's open, I don't know, an investment fund, or it's you see where you want to go and you know logically what you need to do to get there. But when you start to do it, it's everything takes longer than you ever anticipated. And that in itself starts to cut away at your confidence and sometimes create some frustration. And that for me, this is how I felt. I used to feel like the rug was constantly being pulled out from underneath me. And I changed my perspective and my relationship with work. And so I was always a hard worker, but it's I don't think I ever was an intimate worker. And what I mean by that is that I had to shift to becoming an intimate worker, which means that every time I tried something and it didn't work, I immediately, it's that old saying, if you fall off the horse, get back on. And I know that we know that, and I know we love to coach our kids like that. But as adults, often it's oh, I did a webinar and it didn't work. Okay, I'll do one in a month or two, or 6 months, or next year, versus I'm going to do one in 4 days. And so what I've learned is the quicker that I jump into whatever area I'm failing in, and hopefully I'm failing in one area pretty good. You know what I mean? It's if I'm doing something, if I'm doing a growth, even our events, I've been teaching some of our event strategies to our clients. And one of my clients who's amazing did her 2-day event. And this was, I don't know, a few months ago. And she pretty much bombed on it, right? Not pretty much, she bombed on it. And so it was a big investment. She bombed on it. Well, she immediately put another one on the books. And she's the exception to what most people will do. Most people will be afraid to jump on that horse again. And so now her events, just in a short period of time, of I want to say 3-4 months, she has done 2 events. I remember the day when one event was a big ordeal, right? Now I do 3 events a month. And honestly, I'm trying to figure out how to get it to 4 or 5 a month. And so I'm literally it was funny. Yesterday, people were messaging me saying, you must be getting ready for your event. And I'm like, no, I was working with my team all day. I had a VIP day all day, and I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to drive my son to school. Then I'm going to go over to the event, and I'm going to lead an event for a couple of days. And then I'm going to come home. I'm going to be at home for dinner tonight and tomorrow night. It's the stress level is a negative 2, And so, but saying that, I remember my first event was super stressful. We actually have an ad running online right now that says there was one point my husband looked at me and said, are you going to stop doing events, or are you going to ask your family to move into a hotel for a couple months because you are a basket case, you're mean, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, good point. I guess if I am going to keep doing these events, I got to change my attitude. And he was the only person who kind of got into my mind of altering like that next level stress that I used to take on when there was something new happening. So I share this with you because I know, well, I hope you're doing something that that scares you a bit. But the question comes down to, how long do you keep pushing a rock up the hill if something's not working? And I would actually say that that's a leadership and endurance question. Like, one of the things that I'm crazy about with our son is to not coddle him. I want to love him. I want to hug him a lot, but I want him to have resilience because of exactly what we're talking about right now. I think I spent far too many years, and you could take this inventory for yourself. Like, how old are you, right? How many years have you allowed to go by in your life that you haven't had $1 million business when you should? Like, because some of you know that you should have it. And if you've had $1 million business, maybe it's like a 5 million or whatever, right? It's like, and I'm not trying to talk about money here because that's not the point of what I'm trying to land right now. It's about, what are we capable of creating if we were a little bit more resilient? If we like literally could just stop and say, like when I get asked this question, how long do you rinse and repeat a strategy before you switch things up? Well, my answer is, I rinse and repeat the strategy until I'm successful at it. Like, all I need to know is, did I learn this strategy from somebody who's already successful at something? Now, if that's the case, and I know that somebody's been successful with the strategy, then I would not get off the strategy. This is what I've taught myself. I would not get off the strategy until I blew it up, until whatever my blew it up was, right? Like in other words, whatever your goal is, like if you were like, I want to create this result, I want to create 50 people in a group program, I want to have 200 people in a group program. Like, what's your vision? I know for me, my vision originally was really small because that's how I kept safe. But that worked for me because I would hit my small visions, and that's how I grew. And I've grown a lot of entrepreneurs that way. But there's some people who just have really big visions off the bat. And it's like, okay, so you have to have more endurance because you're not going to have as many wins along the race. It's like the marathon is going to be longer, and it's going to be dark out, and there's going to be nobody on the road with you at times when you're running the marathon. Where if you have smaller goals that you hit, you have these immediate hitbacks, because it doesn't take long to get good at finally hitting the small goal. Because if you're resilient and you just get back on the horse, you're going to hit the small goal really quickly. But if you have a really big goal, which some of you guys are blessed with the fact that you have very big visions. I now have a big vision, but it took me a long time to be able to develop a big vision. And that was just my trust in myself getting developed, my trust in other people getting developed, because when I was a little girl, I had my mom's boyfriend used to like hit me. So I had a lot of trust issues that I had to work through. And now if you were to ask my friends, I'm one of the most trusting people. I mean, I trust you until you do something to me that makes me not trust you. And then even in that moment, I will still forgive you and maybe choose to not do business with you or be friends with you or whatever that looks like. But I honestly will forgive you. Like, I won't harbor anything. It's taken me a long time to get there. And I honestly think my business has healed me into that, which is such a blessing, right? So, back to the question about how long do you rinse and repeat a strategy? If you know the strategy has worked for someone, then I would say you're actually hurting yourself if you don't knock it out of the park and hit your goal, whatever your goal is, right? Small or big. And the reason for that is because you back yourself into your limitations and you strengthen them. So again, I go back and I think about my child, and I'm like, I never want him to fail at something and not do it again right away. Like, I don't care how hard he cries, he's got to go back into it, because that's how I will protect him as a parent. Because what I know for sure, making money, falling in love, building a great marriage, fitness, whatever. And by the way, I'm not saying anything for anybody who has given up on any of those things. That's in the past. I think we do give up on things sometimes. And I'm not here to judge that. I think that's just part of sometimes people's learning lessons is that. But I've seen people turnaround marriages that were going for divorce. I've seen one person turn around, everything's an enrollment game, and enroll that marriage back on track, give up needing to be right. I've seen these crazy things happen. And it's always a person that's resilient that leads it. It's always a person that's uber resilient that turns it around. So I always say, like, if you've got business partners, you don't want to both quit on the same day. If you're in a relationship, you don't want to both quit on the same day. But at the end of the day, the biggest security, the biggest security blanket we're ever going to have is to be the resilient one. And I don't mean resilient in just dusting off our shoulders and like plugging through and being independent and doing it again. I actually think independence is overrated. I think independence is like we grow our girls up to be independent like my mom did. And I'm like, independence only gets you so far, and it gets you alone. It gets you without a husband. It gets you without, a team around you to build a big business. Like, just look around. If you're uber independent, look around your life. I guarantee you don't have a massive team. And I guarantee you that you feel like you still carry the weight of the world on your shoulders because you do a lot. And I guarantee you there's probably some challenges in relationships that don't have to be there if you actually learned how to not be quite so independent and learn how to think like, a quarterback of a team that they don't win the Super Bowl without each other. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of bold of me to say, but I mean, do you want me to give the truth of what I've realized, or do you want me to just make you feel good on Coffee with Shanda? So now let me shift for a second. So if I've been given a strategy that I know works, I will stay on that strategy. Often I will pick smaller goals to hit. Like, the first time I did my first webinar ever, I was like, it was a win to just show up and do it. So I had no stress when I failed because I was proud of myself. Then my next time was like, okay, let's see if I could give a really good offer and I could have some sales. So when that happened, it was a win. So I didn't have any stress leading up to the webinar. I already knew I could do a webinar at this point. So now showing up was easier, and now getting some sales was more gamified. So I was like, if I get some, that's a win. So let's try that. Like, I never had the mentality like, I'm going to go on and I'm going to put the whole world, my whole life as the pressure point on this webinar. I mean, to me, I think that is just a really bad strategy, even if your whole life is depending on the webinar, right? You can't put that much pressure on another human being or on a business strategy or a formula. Like, you want to just, if you can avoid that in your head, even if it is, the pressure is there in your head, if you can avoid that pressure, that's great. And then I get a little bit of sales and I'd win. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to master this thing. And then I started doing webinars nonstop for a year, and I mastered it. And now I have a really strong webinar and can do them over and over and over again because I know what I'm doing on it. Now, my first live event, I was like, okay, I just want to break even. If I just break even, I didn't want to make any money. If I could just break even, that would be a win for me. And I made, multiple six figures, which was so cool. But that was like, you could imagine my level of celebration, which is something that business owners and A-type personality people don't do very often, is celebrate ourselves. We know this about ourselves, don't we? Do we know this about ourselves? Comment that if you're understanding what I'm saying. But it's like I go, if whatever your strategy needs to be, if you build it out with, I want to say, like, even lower your expectations as you're learning something, then you're going to find that you're going to be able to master things much quicker. Now, let me share if I'm creating or innovating something. If I'm innovating something and I have no proof that it's going to work, then I have a different measuring stick of whether or not I keep pushing the ball up the hill, right? So if I innovate something like, okay, like when I started cold traffic, which is running Facebook ads, right? When I started cold traffic, I was like, okay, I jumped in, I threw a lot of money at it, threw $150,000 at it over about a month and a half. And I made 100,000. So I was 50,000 under. Not a good strategy to keep going. And I was like, okay, what I'm doing is not working. And so I was like, and I don't know if it's going to work because nobody has told me how to do this. I just jumped in and started innovating it. So what I did was I went back and I started asking for coaching and guidance around what I started to innovate. I reminded myself to be humble. And this is probably one of the best coaching messages that I have for anybody who is succeeding right now. Humility is one of the most amazing things to bring in to your tool belt as a winner, as a pro, as an entrepreneur, as an A-type personality. Whenever you think that you got it, you don't. And so I don't think I got cocky. I was just confident. And because I know that I had fake confidence on running cold traffic, even though I didn't know what I was doing, I still had a level of confidence. And that's because I had a lot of wins behind me before I started running Facebook ads. I'm not a big fan of running Facebook ads or any cold traffic until you figure out your warm traffic, until you figure out how to sell to that warm traffic, until you figure out what your offer really is, not what you think it is, meaning that your cash flow should be really good, in my opinion, before you move into that world, right? And so I started running the traffic. I started realizing it wasn't work. I went back and asked for coaching. Now what I'm doing is taking my innovation model and I'm plugging it into a mentor's advice based on their education wisdom, that these things are tried and true. Like if you do this, Shanda, it should work. And then if it doesn't work, now I'm back to the first strategy I gave you, which I keep getting back on the horse as quick as possible, because I know that the quicker I fail, the quicker I succeed. See, one of the biggest breakdowns we make as change makers that go out there and we change the world is that we think failure is connected with we're a loser or we're wrong or we're bad or we suck. And that's not it. You actually have to get a different mindset and you need to fail as quick as possible, which means whatever you're working on right now, you need to do more of it. If you do more of it in a shorter period of time, this is even how I teach sales. If you do more of it in a shorter period of time, you will, without a doubt, find your character, your chemistry, and the formula, and it will work. But if you don't, and you don't have the resilience to do that, you'll probably shy away from it. And then what happens is you'll pick up a new strategy, and guess what? It's the same relationship with the new strategy. No different than if you switch out love partners, right? You're going to have to go through the same strategy no matter what, with whatever it is you're doing. So you may as well take the bag of goods you already know and get better at it versus to recreate something new, because all it is a pattern of quitting too soon. So I hope that this supported you. I'm going to go grab my son and get him ready for school, and then I'm going to take off to go lead our 2-day event. We have a 2-day event in Del Mar. I'm super excited at the Del Mar Hilton. We're going to be there for the next 2 days where I'm teaching people for free how to build businesses, which is super cool, for the next 2 days, which is awesome. So my way of giving back along the coast of California and pouring some money back into our state, helping entrepreneurs actually build businesses completely for free. These are things that our clients pay for. Just a weird thing. I just decided to move the free line up and to give more. And it's so interesting. The more I give, the more, the company continues to grow in influence, power, and wealth. So here's to you rocking it out. Here's to you being a little bit more generous today. Here's to you looking at your boundaries differently. Maybe you're setting boundaries that are not boundaries you should be setting. Like maybe you're generous and you're setting boundaries to be less generous versus hiring somebody to help take things off your plate so you can continue to be generous. Watch the strategies that you're tweaking and make sure you're tweaking the right strategies. All right, you guys. Bye. I will see you on Monday at 7 a.m. Bye. Please, you know the drill. If you appreciated this live, please share it. I would really love to know. I actually grade what I'm teaching you. I grade myself on the number of shares. So please share it if you appreciated this Coffee with Shanda and want more strategies like this.